So welcome everybody to our session on BattleBots. So here with us, we have Dr. Curtis O'Malley from New Mexico Tech. He is an amazing resource for us and for you all, and he's going to go through and just share a lot about the BattleBots program and then what that means. And then we'll close out the session with reviewing, the contract and the obligations if you choose, if you want to go ahead and sign up for the program, and what that means for you within Mesa. But for now, I'll go ahead and turn it on over to you, Dr. O'Malley. Take it away.
I had to unmute myself. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I guess a couple of quick thank yous first. Ling and Anita really got this program started in terms of introducing us to teachers through Mesa last year, and that was really wonderful for us to get to see that. So hoping some of you all are interested again this year. And then the other people that really got the program started are my students here at Tech. They were the ones that showed me that there would be interest and have developed a lot of the teaching materials and resources. So they get to have the fun experience of writing the stuff and then working with middle school and high school classes like all of yours to see it actually get used, and it's really enjoyable for all of us. Anyway, what it is. So the New Mexico Tech Robot Outreach Program, we centered it here around the robotic combat idea, and I've got a whole bunch of sponsors over the last year and a half that have come on to help us develop the program. These are my students that are currently working in the lab. Jet Ems is actually on the meeting today, and he'll show you some of the bots that we built last year with students. But yeah, so what is our program? So our mission is to promote interest in STEM education, which I think is more or less pretty similar or pretty well aligned with Mesa. But specifically through exciting projects that the students get to see and do something interesting that they wouldn't necessarily get to do otherwise. So some of these bots here we have on the screen on the left are two robots from the first tournament we had here at Tech that the seniors built. And then the one on the right was from a high school program I ran this summer with AFRL.
Sharing your screen.
I'm not sharing my screen. Thank you. You would think as long as we spent teaching classes on Zoom that I wouldn't still be making those mistakes. Okay. How do I go back? There we go. Okay, so here's our program and sponsors. And these are my students, Rochelle, Jet, Zoe, Will, Mason, and Jared. And these are the two bots I was talking about. So on the left, the ones from our first tournament. On the right, this is a maze mapping robot that we built as part of a high school summer camp this summer. Okay, so a little bit of background on the program. We started back, or this program will start up here in the fall. We'll introduce Arduino and coding programs. We'll have kind of three categories. Usually with elementary school or middle school groups that haven't done any coding yet. We have a program that Zoe worked on last year where we'll go through how to set up an Arduino, how to build a little circuit, and how to program it to do a blinking light sequence like Morse code or something else. Then the Mesa bots, which is what we did last year with all of you, will give you program content that goes over what parts you need, how to design it, how to code it in the Arduino Editor, which is this top right image here. We usually would give the students a code that has the robot drive forward and turn left and right, but doesn't have any reverse function, so it gets stuck in a corner. And then have them work through understanding what the code does now, and then how do I add to it the ability to go in reverse. And then the other thing that's new this year is this 150-gram combat robot. So last year, when some of the teams came to Tech for the exhibition matches, they saw what some of the students here at Tech built, and they were really jealous. So if we had some high school students that were really jealous and really wanted to do a little more, this 150-gram bots, there's a trade-off. We don't do any more coding with them, but there's a lot more engineering involved. So they have 150 grams, and it's a hard stop at 150 grams. Like, if it's over 150 grams, the solution is drill holes in it until it gets down to weight. And so the takeaway with that is we don't have the Arduino in there, because that, while it allowed us to teach them coding, it mostly added weight, because there are ways to do it with off-the-shelf parts that are pre-coded to work together. And so that's where the 150-gram bots come in. All right, so introduction to coding, we've got, I probably should have switched over to this already, but like I said, we have an Arduino, some various circuits, right? We've got a fan, a motor, show how the different types of signal control different pieces of equipment, and go over some of those basics. This is something we could do with the parts to build the combat bots, just as a lead-in if we wanted to take a little more time, or you wanted to take a little more time with the class. And then the Arduino Editor. So if you haven't used Arduino Editor before, there's a web-based version. There's also one you could download to computers, depending on your school's restrictions. So I was able to use the web-based editor on APS school computers last year. We actually had more luck installing it, because it's a web-based app, on the student computers than we did on the teacher's computer. The teacher's computer was kind of hard. I don't know why, but that worked out. If you weren't sure if it was going to work out, I'd be happy to help work through some of that. That said, there were some districts where the IT restrictions were such that it didn't really work. The workaround, we could always write these things in either the web-based thing that doesn't talk to the computer, or we could write them in just Notepad, because it's just a text file. And then we just have to take it and use either a personal computer, or send me the code here and I'll upload it to an Arduino and send it back. So we have some workarounds if there are issues with getting the computers in the schools to talk to the Arduinos. That was always the trouble if the driver wasn't there. All right, so some introductory lesson details. So lessons will usually be consist of 3 parts. How do I build the circuit? How do I write the code? And then some time looking through what's working, what's not, what could I do differently in the future. My goal with the program is to be as flexible as possible to what your assessment of where your students are, right? If your students have never seen coding, then I would recommend, or never wired anything together, then I would recommend we take a little bit of time at the beginning and build a little circuit, build a circle. Well, a circuit is a circle, but build a circuit where we control some lights, turn a motor on and off. We can show the difference between a digital and an analog signal, where the analog signal just turns the motor on or off, whereas the digital signal, we can actually control the speed, and we see we can give it something that looks like a sine wave as the input, and so it ramps up and down in speed, and it's kind of interesting, and we can tie it back to other lessons, probably depending on what your objectives for the semester in your curriculum are. So yeah, this is the intro. The first workshop we usually did just LEDs, 1 LED and then 5, and then how to make them fade. Do the same thing I talked about with the motor, just with lights. This is a nice place to start, because if we wire something wrong and we burn out an LED, it's just burning out a light bulb. They're cheap and easy to fix. We can understand, the students can start to understand the impact of making a mistake with the wiring on something that's really cheap, as opposed to jumping right into the motor systems that are slightly more expensive to replace. All right, so the Mesa Combat Bots overview, like I said, this is what we did last year. Could be a middle school program, could be high school program, could be after school program, whatever your system is. We'll work through how to build it, how to wire it and code it. It's an Arduino controlled robot, so the rules for building it are the volume, right? We've introduced the Arduino as the brain and the control system. Even though it's not strictly necessary, we could buy an RC controller and a motor system that's pre-programmed to work together, but then there's nothing to teach. There's different things. It doesn't let us teach coding, and so the goal was teach coding and end up with something kind of fun. It's actually kind of similar to what I do with the Intro to Mechanical Engineering, which is the freshman students here at Tech. Their bot will look a lot like this, except it will also include a laser and light sensor, like you would go to the laser tag arena and play laser tag with your class. Instead, I have the class build robots that play laser tag with each other instead of doing it themselves. Obviously, I don't teach a gym class, so it doesn't matter. There's not very much exercise involved in that. So these are the basic parts from the bots, and basically what we did last time is we'll put all this in a kit and send it out, and then start to have some call-ins to get you started and give you some instruction sheets to follow along. They're kind of written a little bit like IKEA instructions. You do step 1 and then step 2. I learned some things from doing it last year. I let the students pick the wires. We'll color code things this time. So we've got some revised instructions, so it's a little easier to troubleshoot when there's something wrong, and it will be less likely we miswire things and burn out batteries too fast and things like that. So students have the option to charge ahead with the frame as is, or build their own, either out of foam board or 3D printed. If they chose to come to the tournament at the end, they're certainly welcome to, and we'll put the 2 different kinds in a different bracket, so we don't have something that's 3D printed smashing something that's made out of foam. So for this, there's 4 main parts: the assembly, programming the Arduino, implementing the reverse code, so taking the program and really understanding what it did, and then developing a weapon system. So spinning weapon, one that flicks a hammer, or does like a javelin, except they can't throw it, but poke it kind of thing. So something like that. It basically deciding how they want to add a third motor to the system and what they want to attach to it. That part's all on the students to come up with their own design at that point. We've given them the coding required to make it work, how to wire it, and from the things we've covered before, so they get the chance to implement those things. Like I said, I've broken it into these 3 different categories of systems, but if your class is somewhere in between and want to spend some time on the basic coding stuff and some time on building the bot, it's more or less the same supplies, so happy to do that. All right, and then the new thing. So 150 gram combat bots. Here's a 3D image of one that one of our students designed last year. My intention is to limit this to high school students, primarily because it's much more of an engineering challenge, and it also requires some significant responsibility and safety awareness on the part of the students. So the blade on this one is generally something like a piece of steel or the blade from a Dremel tool or something like that. And so it's been a while since I was in a middle school classroom myself as a student, but correct me if I'm wrong, because you all are the experts, but I think that's something that we would rather not give to middle school class. Maybe an after school program where you have a much smaller student to teacher ratio, and can have more eyes on that. Anyway, okay, so here's a photo of a different design of one, but yeah, it's just a little aluminum bar on the end here. It spins rather fast. They spin fast enough that they'll break the 3D plastic parts of the other one and will actually, reduce each other to tiny pieces. The upside of these Mesa bots is it's kind of like a demolition derby. They push each other around, they pin each other to the wall. They might cause some superficial damage to the robots, but they're probably not breaking any major components as a part of the competition, and they shouldn't be going fast enough that they're really a hazard to the students. Like I said, these new ones are kind of a different story. So the main takeaway, there's no more coding because we've got specialized components, but there's a lot more emphasis on designing it, whether it's computer modeling or hand drafting and fabricating it. There would be soldering involved, and more tools required. So yeah, so our program website is here. The easiest way to find it, though, is probably just to Google New Mexico Tech or NMT Robot Combat STEM Outreach, or half of those words is probably enough to get to it. It'll probably be the first thing that pops up. Yeah, so this is a picture from last year's tournament. In the middle of the screen there are some of the bots that students built last year. Basically, when we were at the end, they just all dumped them in the arena and had fun playing with it. In the bottom left are the 3-pound robots that the tech students have built as their senior design project. You can see much more destructive, and entertaining. So the goal is, if they do decide to come to the event here on campus, they'll get to see the ones the college students build. They'll get to see ones that their other classes from around the state have built, meet some other students, and have some fun. And I couldn't resist throwing this in there. We took the bots to the Isotopes game for their STEM night earlier this month. And so these are my kids playing with the bots and having one attack orbit. But it looks like I was not watching the chat and there's a bunch of stuff in there.
I think Jet managed to catch a lot of the questions, Dr. O'Malley.
Okay.
One outstanding question though, I think is, oh no, Anita answered it. Of course, you can purchase additional supplies as designed. There was a question about purchasing additional supplies so every student could participate in creating a robot for a robotics class.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely.
I think the caveat is Tracy posted that question. Mesa will be providing some supplies, but we would not have budget to be able to supply all the supplies for every student in a classroom. And I don't believe that New Mexico Tech has that budget either. I don't need to speak for Tech, but if you, Tracy, have additional budget for that to be able to happen for your students, I think that would be a separate discussion.
Yeah, I have additional budget. I just wouldn't know where to, what exactly is in the kit and where to get it. So,
okay. I can help with that.
Okay.
If it's the Mesa class, it's all Amazon parts, and I can provide an Excel spreadsheet. Some of the stuff we saw last year that we buy Amazon's entire stock of RC controllers. So we should start early, and basically every month we rebuy everything they restocked. And then the 150 gram ones, it's not all Amazon. Some of it's pretty specialized. So we'll have to, but same thing, I can provide a list of places to find stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And calendar, yeah. So this is the website I was mentioning. What I have so far is the end of season tournament will be April 29th. So we have until then to get everybody up and running. I was planning to offer this year, if any school wanted to come to campus in January, for basically, I saw what happened when we did the tournament and we had like 12 or 15 middle schools and high schools all here at once. You didn't get very individualized attention from me and the students here at Tech. So if you wanted some individualized attention for your class and to come up sometime in January, 1 or 2 schools a day, we would sit down and do a workshop in person and tour with just your class instead of tour with everybody at once. So we could certainly schedule that. What worked with the Mesa program last year is, Anita, chime in if I get any of this wrong, but you guys do the contracts here and then we'll start to order parts, and that'll probably take a couple weeks, and then mail them out to you. And then we can do virtual classroom visits. We usually did them like once a week, either probably Jet and some of those other students that you saw on that first slide would call in, and occasionally if they fit into my schedule, I'll call in and check on things. And that usually took 4 weeks or so. I think that was what was going to be in the contract. If you're having fun with it, or your class is struggling and you really want to spend more time on it, The tech side, we're happy to do longer than 4 weeks, but I recognize that you have curriculum content you need to get to. I don't want to take over your entire semester if you don't want that. So again, flexible to meet what you want, but if we're starting sometime in October with the classes, we should have no problem getting everybody functional by April.
So no, I think that was good. Dr. O'Malley, do you think maybe now's a good time to go over the contract and the commitments and what's provided?
Sure.
If maybe you want to be able to stop your share and then I'll switch over to the contract. I know the last couple questions in the chat were related to some of those things. So
yeah, you can take it.
So hopefully you guys have been the contract has been out, distributed through your regional coordinators. And so this is just, kind of to do the BattleBots pathway. It's a commitment between us with New Mexico Tech, and we are asking for the contract because it is a big investment, both financial and also time-wise. And, we're putting in a lot of work, and New Mexico Tech is putting in a ton of work, to be able to make these accommodations for you all. So that's why we're asking for the signed contract and the commitment. So after today, really think about if this is something for you and your program. And, we'd love to support it, given that you put in on your end, that commitment on your end. So if you choose to sign up for the program, right now we were looking at 20 schools. So if there's multiple teachers per school here on this line, the contract would be one per school, and you guys can arrange to see how that works. We'll send out the materials to you for 2 class program bots. So on average, each kit is running at about $150 a kit, all the parts included. So as Dr. O'Malley mentioned, there is a supply list. So once all of the ones that do the contract, and if you only want your 2, those will be sent directly to you. So you don't have to mess with any supply list. You don't have to do any ordering. You'll be sent materials for 2 bots on your own. The only time you would need to mess with the supply list is if you wanted to order extra things, but that would be entirely up to you beyond the 2 bots. There was also a question about team size. For competition, Dr. O'Malley, I don't know if there was a limit per team. I think, whatever group could work around a bot. Usually our Mesa team size is 4. But, working on the bots is an entirely different experience than, thinking for the competition. So like our goal with this BattleBots program is more working with the bots and learning and working with that. So it's not necessarily, it's a team size that is manageable to work with the robot. So, depending upon how well the group works, 4 to 8, per bot, possibly more, on interest. That goes into those team dynamics of building up a team of kids that are actually actively interested versus just sitting there because they'll, more bodies doesn't necessarily mean better participation. And so what will happen is once you commit to the program or you get admitted into the program with Dr. O'Malley and his team, you will then set up individual class times. So it might be solo meets, or maybe if 2 schools can meet at 12 o'clock on Thursdays or something, you might work together. But you will set up individual sessions based upon your calendar and their calendar sometime between the months of September to December to complete these and get them completed individually virtually. For programs that have done this before, like last year, you guys might be ready to go faster than maybe some of the newer programs. So those could happen maybe more on the front end. The other thing that Mesa will provide is an optional 5th session, as Dr. O'Malley mentioned, to be able to go up to New Mexico Tech in January to do that last session, like a closing out session in person, also do a college visit, also do like a workshop. Again, the intention of this BattleBot program is the learning experience. So, and the number of the people that can attend will be based upon who wants to go. It's optional. So not every program that signs up for this, that like if you guys can't leave school for whatever reason, like that trip to New Mexico Tech is an option. It's available there, but it will be limited. If everybody wants to go, we probably will have to limit size like to suburban use or vice versa. If only a handful of schools want to go, we could possibly allow buses to go, but that's to be determined as we get closer to January based upon those teams that are actually in the program. Dr. Melly has also mentioned the spring challenge that has been April 29th in the contract. I wasn't sure on the date, so it is April the 29th. That is supported if you want to attend the challenge and you complete the bots through the program. You are invited to the challenge. Financial support for providing transportation would have to happen regionally. So get with your regional coordinator to either support that or through your own school. Through our statewide Mesa budget, we're providing the learning project up to, but the actual attending of the challenge will either happen through your regional coordinator support or through your own school support to participate. And then, so that's what we're providing. And then what you will agree to is to participate in today's session, to meet with the scheduled time. So if you set up a meeting, please be there, and please be there with your team students to commit to those sessions. Commit to completing the lessons, commit to doing any of the homework that is provided in those sessions and just working with Dr. O'Malley, and just commit to finishing your BattleBots. Like, please don't just get the supplies and then disappear. Just because, you know, a lot of effort has gone into arranging the partnership there. And so if you were interested in still doing that, you would then sign and complete this, send it to me. My email is up at the top. The absolute deadline is August 31st, but as soon as possible. If we do have to limit our participation, it'll be based upon, you know, programs that we know will be able to complete the project and, you know, when we got things, and by participating here today. The one thing I did not include on the contract, and if you're able just to write on it somewhere, is your level. You know, Dr. O'Malley went through the 3 different levels. I mean, that's not a set in stone, that's not an anything, but that'll give us an idea if you're a beginner, if you are looking at the Mesa robot, or if you were looking at the more advanced robot. So that will give us an idea of the kits and, you know, the level of our schools coming in, participating there. And that will also help, you know, kind of determine the support that we're going to need. And as Dr. O'Malley mentioned, maybe you're starting out as a beginner, but maybe your kids are really into it and you'll still get the bot. Excuse me. And you can go in and finish through. Sorry about that. And you can go ahead and finish through the bot session. So just go ahead and write on there the level that you are at, the 1, 2, or 3 on the contract. There's some questions in the chat, and go ahead and ask if there are any other questions.
There was a question, Ida, about if there are co-sponsors, should the co-sponsors submit a contract as well? Like a co-advisor. You're muted.
I was reading through the questions. There was some other
Okay.
ones on there too. So right now, if you want to submit both to go sign, depending upon availability and limited budget, we may not be able to honor both co-sponsors. So it might we just will pick one per school. So we'll be awarding the classes based on per school, depending upon interest. If we only have 10 that are interested, well, then we can probably support both, but we more than likely, we may only be able to support like one contract per school. So you guys would just decide on that. And then
I wasn't able to download the contract from the chat.
I also emailed it to you. I emailed it, well, specifically to you, Tracy. I know it's here in the north. So it was in one of the emails that I sent out, but we'll eventually get it put up on the website also too, but we can get that to you. Your coordinator can get you the contracts if not. But I did put in the chat there. Other questions, is New Mexico Tech having an Expo Day again in the fall yet? I'm not, and Dr. Melly can answer that. I'll defer to that when I'm done here. They do have different days that you could possibly attend to. Let's see. So I'm going through the chat here in a bit. If we have more teams, can we join the competition without Mesa sponsorship? That's, oh, Dr. Melly is already answering that. Okay, I think those are them. Are there any other questions about the contract before I pass it back over to Dr. O'Malley and to his students?
Ms. Anita,
Mhm.
I have a question about, are middle school students allowed to go to the expos? Is that?
Yes, so it is geared towards middle and high school students. So that's why the different levels are varied, within the, yes, so middle school's kids have a great time with it. So again, just giving us the idea of maybe where you're starting at. And that is also the benefit of the individualized lessons is meeting you where you're already at. So some programs are more advanced and, some programs are just beginning. So and maybe the goal of the program is to work up to the bot, like work up to the Mesa bot versus some of you already have lots of Mesa bots and maybe you want to take on that higher challenge. So that's up to you.
Miss Anita, who will we send the contracts to once we've completed them?
To me, and my email's at the top of the contract, to mail no later than August 31st to me, to Anita@nmesa.org.
Thank you.
Anita, has Socorro or the middle school, are they signed up and be committed to the bots for this year?
I've received a couple contracts, but I honestly haven't reviewed them and I haven't committed anybody this year. No one has been accepted until after today's session. So looking at everybody as a whole to see what we're planning on 20 schools, and then we'll kind of see who submits by the 31st and kind of pick and choose if we have to, but kind of looking to support based upon interest.
Okay, because I'll check with my Mesa students and my upper bound students, but I'm still part of the high school, so I don't know how that works. But if I have an interest in my class, would we be able to at least get one of them for the Mesa for the upper bound students?
I don't know. We'll have to talk about that separately offline, for differences. But one of the requirements to actually be given a program was that they come to today's session. So, we can talk about that off session if it's for an upward bound or a different project besides Mesa.
Thank you.
James, did you have a question?
Yeah, just more information for Dr. O'Malley. I'm just interested in knowing at your institution with your students, are you guys already utilizing 3D with some of the robotic designs?
You cut out there on, I think, the important part of the question. Are we using 3D? Were you asking 3D printing or?
Correct.
Yeah. So I don't have a picture of the 3D print lab, but it's cool. We have like 12 3D printers downstairs. Little glass enclosure with a fume hood on it so that the plastic melting smell doesn't overwhelm you. But yeah, so we have laser cutter and we have a machine shop down there for traditional manufacturing, but then we also have these 12 3D printers that do various types of plastics and carbon fiber and fiberglass, and so there's a lot of cool stuff we can show.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And there was another question in the chat about, do we have to decide which competition we go to before the contract? The competition is not part of the contract. So that is the expansion. If you choose to go again, that cost will be assumed regionally or on your own. So the competition is not a commitment to the contract. We just ask that through the contract that you complete the project, the learning, the workshops, the experience, complete the bots and complete the curriculum. The actual competition or the showcase, I guess that's what it's more called, is a bonus and would be on your own if you choose to take it to that next level. Are there any other questions from anybody else?
I have one more thing I can share here. You want? So give you an idea of what we'll give you. Which screen am I sharing?
We're currently looking at the 150 gram PDF.
150 gram, perfect. That's what I wanted to do. So this is the instructions that the students have written. We have a hole to fill in here before we send it, but it works through pictures of the parts and how we go about adding to the 3D printed parts the metal inserts so we can screw in fasteners and things to take it apart and put it together. This is the on-off switch, and then how we go about wiring and soldering all the various parts together. So like I said, students here are great. They've taken the time to really go through and give as much detail as possible about what we're building, and then they have some videos where they talk about what the various parts are and how they function and why they're in there. That happy to share too. So kind of how much you want to do. This is the other type of robot. Like I said, we didn't have it color coded last year, so this is the new image where the red is all the power and the green is all the ground. And so we would make sure that it's wired up that way before we plug in the battery the first time. That was I think our major downfall last year. I guess if there weren't any other questions, Jet, did you want to show them some of them driving, or?
We can do that. Yeah. So yeah, with the ones, so the main ones that we work with with the students are our styrofoam one, which the basic idea is that it's a wedge at the front that they're able to drive around, and with the option of putting some kind of weapon in the back. This one just has a servo that just very simply spins. So you could put, in theory, you could put some kind of cardboard beam on it or something to kind of act as a weapon and kind of push around other robots. We also then have, these ones sadly aren't able to drive right now. We have our 1 pound robots that we can make that we've made with students in the past for our tournament. And then we have our larger ones that the actual tech students make themselves. And with these ones, these are kind of the, if they come to the tournament and whatnot, they'll see one of this size, and hopefully in this upcoming tournament, bigger ones. Because these ones are 3 pounds. We are currently working at doing some heavier weight classes as well, with the hopes of possibly doing 50-pound robots. Yeah. Those are what I have out for right now, Dr. O'Malley.
All right, thank you. Any other questions we missed?
From the TV show, those range from 125 to 250 pounds. The modern ones are 250, the heavyweight class.
Yeah, those would be cool. We started small and are working our way towards that goal someday.
Well, do you have anything else to cover, Dr. O'Malley?
I don't think so. I'm sorry I didn't quite fill all your time.
No, that's more than, I'm sure everyone's excited with that.
Get a little
But
lunch.
we just wanted to give, an introduction, make sure, you understood, what was going to be provided, make sure you understood about the program, and also understood what your commitments were, if you choose to sign up for the program. So in the chat, I did include the link to the survey for participation today. So go ahead and complete that before you leave. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording now.